Hello, welcome to IT Chronicles, 10 in Tech, coming from Knowledge 17. I'm Shane Carlson, and my co-host Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Shane.
We're here with Michael Ludwig from Blazent, and thank you for being on the show here today. I appreciate you attending. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing with Blazent right now in terms of discovery and the CMDB and everything that you guys are doing around data quality.
Sure. Well, one of the important things to realizing the value of a ServiceNow implementation is to get the CMDB right, because so many things leave and live downstream of it. And so we're really acting as a data quality management layer, fronting ServiceNow, bringing in best-of-breed tool sets from lots of customer implementations, doing data quality normalization, putting all of that data together, and then automating the process of both populating CIs into the CMDB and then maintaining the attributes around those CIs as they live through their life cycles.
Excellent. Now, Michael, I mean, there's always that perception, we're going to solve everything with we're going to discover everything's there, right? Because it's just magically there and it's all magically correct. I see the grin. Talk about a little bit, because that's sort of your input, right? Where you guys have to deal with what's coming in from that discovery. How do you deal with, what's not there in particular? I mean,
sure. So there's really two aspects of that. One is some of the issues that kind of evolve around your understanding of what discovery is capable of doing. Right. And so, it's reading a lot of cases directly out of the BIOS, and in other cases looking farther down into the trees. But the values that are written there are not necessarily coherent values. So a lot of times there's things like to be filled out by a manufacturer. And importing those values into your CMDB does absolutely no good. And so there's that aspect of it. And then there's the aspect of really important data that needs to be populated into the CMDB that's not discoverable. So we're talking about things like owned by, managed by, supported by, support group, all of those really important things from a governance perspective that are not discoverable items, right? Sure. And so you have to look to other data sources to bring that data in and marry that up.
Right. So how do you pivot the data quality story? Because I think when you look at it on its surface, everyone understands data quality is a good thing. But how do you pivot that conversation with a lot of your clients, especially your bigger clients, in translating that into real value and real dollars for their organization?
So in a nutshell, it takes one severe outage and what the lost revenue in one severe outage is to justify the relatively small dollars that are involved in maintaining data quality. So some of our tier one customers lose $3 to $4 million a minute when they have a significant outage. Yeah. Right. And so taking care of that on the front end, making sure that the CMDB contains quality data that's up to date, and then letting the downstream activities feed off of that is just a natural progression.
Yeah, I can definitely see in the case of like a large global services provider, that's managing asset data and CMDB data for hundreds or thousands of customers, where that could come in valuable, especially for things like how they bill their customers. I mean, around the quality of the data for the assets they touch. Are you guys doing a lot of that?
Sure. As a matter of fact, we actually see two sides of that. So we work with some very large MSP and MSI players in the space. So we do a lot of looking at what they're billing and what the life cycle of the items they're actually billing are, and then rectifying the differences between those. And then from an enterprise perspective and also an MSI perspective, we're looking at the MSPs that are operating in the space. Are they billing correctly? Are they maintaining the SLA levels that they stated in the contract? And we're actually able to measure all of those things from an operational perspective as well. In
many cases, are you finding big discrepancies where they're losing revenue?
Always.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. And it's not really from a pattern perspective. It can happen on either side, right? Either I'm not billing enough from an MSP perspective, or I'm overbilling. Yeah. And some of that lives case to case, right? So in certain cases I'm billing for more than I should be, in other cases I'm not billing enough.
Yeah.
And Michael, can you talk, I guess, a little bit, because I think a lot of people get confused. They think data quality and that's everything, right? But it's really not. It's data quality, it's integrity, there's a lot of aspects to that.
Sure.
So could you kind of, I mean, that's where you guys live, right?
Yes, it is where we live. One of the aspects that's probably the most hidden aspect is that people don't understand that there's a temporal nature to the data as it flows through the system. So certain tools touch certain CI types at certain times and not continually. And so understanding which of your tool stack is the most recent set of data available is really where it starts to begin, and then reconciling the temporal differences between that data is a challenge in its own right, but really, really important to maintaining the integrity of the CMDB.
Right, yeah, because I know, like, you know, and I think you and I have touched on the basis of, you know, you get that snapshot. There's a lot that happened between the two snapshots.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, it looks perfect, nothing changed. It's like, oh, no, 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 there's a lot that happened in between there.
That's right. So if you're looking at things, you know, that are, I would consider more mature things, like I'm looking at compute rationalization in a data center, for example, right? So if we're streaming data continually and we can show you aggregate averages of peak CPU utilization, memory utilization, those kinds of things, where if you're just looking at snapshot data, it's point in time, it's useless for
Right,
trying
it's
to
all over the
determine
board,
those
If
things,
they're running
right?
that at 3 o'clock in the morning so as not to increase load on the network and the devices, you know, they're not going to see a lot of load and utilization in those time frames if that's not when their business is. What's the biggest surprise that a lot of your customers get? You know, you walk into somebody who thinks they have mature, they've been doing, say, discovery with ServiceNow for a while, and they've got a lot of asset data in their system. You know, is it often surprising to them when you guys run your tools in their system and show them how bad the data might be?
Surprise is probably not the acronym that they would use.
Yes, I'm sure.
It's usually a little more negative bent because they didn't realize that they were as in bad a shape as they actually are.
Yeah.
And so that initial visibility tends to be shocking. And, you know, it isn't the end of the line, right? It's a retrenchment. So now that we understand where we're at, now we need to step better process in. We need to have better rules. We need to be able to have more efficient workflow, right? So it can be a catalyst for really positive change, but the initial shock is, okay, oh, this doesn't feel so good.
Yeah. So I think a lot of from a customer side of view, the question would be kind of, you know, is this a one-time thing? Do you just come in and run this once and fix the data and everything's fine, or is this kind of a constant plan of attack that you have to maintain the data quality?
No, it's a. So there's two pieces to that. I mean, it's never done, ever. You know, technology evolves faster than the speed of light, so change is inevitable. But that's why automation of that process is really important. And so we have a forward-facing precedence rules engine that really sets that automation in process. And once you get that dialed in pretty well, you can have some very sophisticated rules that can actually manage hiccups along the way and still end up with the right things happening downstream.
So do you see, I mean, and I don't know if you've done a lot of metrics around, what is that ratio from, you know, is it 20% accurate, you know, when you first start to, and I don't want you to divulge anything that maybe will get you guys in trouble, but is it that low? Is it, you know, is it 99%? I mean, I have my opinion, so.
You know, it varies significantly from customer to customer. It depends on the maturity of the process, how well what their prior solution set was working for them. There's a lot of things that go into that, but you know, probably on average, it's in the 60% area when we first engage, and up in the high 90s is where we land pretty much.
And that's huge. I mean, especially this day and age. I mean, you know, I look at it from, you know, especially from a security perspective in this day and age. You know, for years, we've always kind of wrapped up things where, oh, it's just an unauthorized change, no big deal, fix it. In this day and age, when they're on, you know, on the network for that much longer, those little tweaks might be, you know, much more significant.
They are significant. They're significant in the sense that if you really look at what occurs with most of the major security breaches, it's lack of due diligence on the part of the organization. And it's because they just don't have the capabilities either from a technology standpoint and a lot of times from a personnel standpoint to be in a position to cover themselves. So for example, you know, a logical association between known vulnerabilities and what I have operating in my environment. What are my patching levels at? Where am I at with those kinds of things?
Simple
They don't
things.
have visibility into that.
Yeah, I think back to all the battery recalls and things of that nature and getting specific model numbers down and serial numbers. So, excellent. Michael, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
And you know, I wish you guys a lot of success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.